Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode. This is your host, David Kim. Hi, Samuel. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and the journey to founding the Automation for Humanity?
Right. Well, I grew up in Canada, and I came back to Hong Kong about 13, 14 years ago to actually work on another startup, which was related to an aerated footwear technology, where we created something that basically footwear, which circulated about 40 to 50 milliliters of air per step and could take away a lot of the moisture, the sweat. And then 6 or 7 years ago, my grandmother, had some problems with bathing, and one of my partners, her dad fell twice in a nursing home. And that started us thinking about another business, which related to aged care and elderly care. And so at that time, we moved into this current business, which is related to automating the caregiving tasks, and helping to relieve the burden of aged care that a lot of people suffer at home.
I see. So that's the way you came up with the business idea for the Automation for Humanity.
Yes, it started from personal need,
Yes.
both from my own grandparents and the father of one of my partners.
I see.
And slowly, as we delved into the industry, there were people coming to us and asking for additional solutions. And so we've got into this business of, I would say right now, creating solutions for all of the major caregiving tasks, are either, in development, or there are plans to develop them now.
Yeah, I understand your product on a high level because brand product name is a very self-explanatory, right? Sits in shower, automated bed to wheelchair. Would you like to tell us what problem are you solving now?
So our automated bathing device actually launched in around 2019. We had pilot trials before that, but we launched that in Hong Kong, Sweden, Singapore, and have a lot of distributors for other areas in the pipeline, and then we have started investigating this idea of automated bed to wheelchair transfer, which involves just using either voice control or a remote control to automatically move a person who is not able to stand up or walk on their own, or without the need of any third-party assistance to a nearby wheelchair. So we've started investigating this, we started studying the issue, and we hope to launch a solution for this at the end of next year. The problem that we're trying to solve here really with automated transfer is the fact that a lot of people, without caregivers, and there isn't actually sufficient caregiver labor around the world able to support a person over to a wheelchair. And so we're planning to open up just the ability to stay at home to these people.
Yeah. Automated bed wheelchairs, we can imagine what it is, right? But the sits in shower, is it self-moving machine or robot, or does it still need someone who assisted that aged person? Can you describe a little bit about how it looked like?
So it's a seated bathing device that can either fit over a toilet or an empty shower stall, and with the press of one button, it handles everything from the automatic temperature control, automatic soaping, shampooing. It even rinses all of it off at the very end, right? And it controls about 13 water jets, which circulates around a program, right, to wash and clean the different areas.
How much does that cost to consumer price?
The consumer price is around 5,500 US.
So are you selling in the Hong Kong market?
We are selling in the Hong Kong market, although I would say our primary markets are in the West. In Hong Kong, actually, a lot of the bathrooms are very, very
small.
tiny.
Yeah, I know. We know very well, right? Very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although we are in a number of nursing homes and hospitals in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
More in Singapore and also a number in Sweden.
Right. But since this is related to aged people, did you face the entry barrier in terms of local regulation related to health, safety, and etc.?
Surprisingly, in Hong Kong, the regulation is a bit easier than some places around the world.
Usually, yes. Yeah.
Yes. We found the CE to be for Europe to be slightly harder, and then it depends also on which certification body, or I would say test lab, you go with. There are progressively harder ones, and then the North American requirements tend to be a bit higher.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I think, a great solution to the aged people, right? Whether they're rich or poor, I mean, physically become weaker and then need a lot of assistance from the other people. But with this kind of a sit-in shower, automated bed wheelchair, yeah, I can feel that you're providing great solution to people, I mean, aged people in the market. But problem is, yeah, in every country they have different regulations to regulate these kind of machines and sales of equipment. Yeah, that's I think one of the challenges you need to figure out how to solve and then enter that local market. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
One of the other challenges is trying to make it as affordable as possible, and
Yes.
that's really one
That's
of
a
our
chicken. That's a game of chicken and egg, right? If you can scale the business, you can make it very cheap, affordable to the people. But in the beginning, you need to generate the sales and then make ends meet. Yeah, that would be challenging for a startup. Yeah.
So that's actually a balance, and we've approached the problem from the very beginning. Actually, we focus on using as many off-the-shelf parts as possible, and we designed to be low cost from the very start. So our goals are to be actually comparable to non-automated solutions on the market. So that we can
Actually, that
make a
is
real
my
impact.
next question. Do you have competitor who are not only in Hong Kong but internationally? Some company who are selling the automated shower machine or the automated bed wheelchair, something like that.
So to clarify a bit, there are some semi-automated solutions. I wouldn't say fully automated solutions on the market. There are some Japanese devices for showering and for bathing. They tend to require a bit more assistance than ours. In the fact that a lot of times when they get in, they need assistance getting in and getting out. I would say with our current sit and shower device, when it's paired together with our automated transfer, it will not have this requirement. Also, the Japanese units tend to be about 10 times more expensive than our devices.
Really?
So you'll see them at 50 something thousand US, 60,000 US. We've seen some that are 100 something US.
What is the reason? They are semi-automated, but much more expensive than yours.
It really comes down to the design philosophy. As you said, there tends to be a lot of overhead. There tends to be a lot of
fancy design.
Fancy designs. A lot of times, they design everything from scratch.
Right.
and we've designed ours to use as many common parts from other industries as possible. So that's a huge design, philosophical difference.
That isn't Japanese market is a huge potential for you then?
Absolutely, in the future,
Because your
absolutely.
competitor in terms of price is not competitive at all as compared to yours, right?
It's
Right.
not competitive at all in terms of
Right.
price.
Right.
For the
And
automated,
then also Japan is well known for the aged society, right?
absolutely. The one challenge in the Japanese market is, generally speaking, foreign companies have a hard time
Sure, yeah,
breaking
that's a
into that
challenge.
market.
Even the financial
That's
market, I mean, international
absolutely.
investor, they fail in Japan, right?
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. And I would think for our company, we would probably wait until we're far more mature
I
uh, before
see.
we before we try and tackle such a difficult and unique market. Oh, just to
Okay.
answer on the automated transfer, there
Yeah.
isn't anything automated on the market.
Mm.
Everything on the market requires at least one present caregiver, and that's a fundamental difference that we're approaching. Because if you think about it, if your mom or dad or your grandparents require 24/7 care at home, for example, they need to go to the toilet at night.
Mm.
Um, it could be 3 a.m. in the morning. If you don't have a caregiver there, and let's say the average caregiver is female and 50 something years old, how are they going to manage to get them to the toilet? And
Yes.
so this drives the costs, right? So if you need to have a caregiver there 24 hours, 7 days a week, it gets very expensive. And
Mm.
so for us to remove this requirement of needing an in-person caregiver, and in fact, an in-person caregiver who has some strength to be able to operate those other devices, we actually help them, live with more dignity and independence, because there's no lifting, there's no requirement for another person to help move them from the bed to the wheelchair and then uh, to the toilet.
Yeah. It seems like you have a huge potential for the business model, right?
I really believe that we can improve the lives of a lot of
Yes.
seniors, everywhere.
Right. I understand you have run this business couple of years now and then introduced two product now. What is the biggest challenge in scaling your business, taking it to the next level?
Just to clarify on that, we've actually only launched our first product. Our second product launches next year,
I see.
end of next year. So the bathing
Got
device
it.
is on the market. The automated transfer will launch at the end of next year. We're still investigating and research. I think it will be to understand the different cultures and the different expectations that different groups have. I myself come from Canada originally,
Mhm.
and the way of taking care of people in the West is very different from um, in Hong Kong, and the expectations and requirements are very different as well. Um,
Yes. Consumer in every country market, geographic market, they have a different, I mean, preference, right? Like some consumer, they are not willing to pay the huge money for the nice design, but the consumer in some other market, they prefer to have a fancy design as a Japanese, right? That
right,
so you need
right.
to customize your product. I mean, to each geographic market and different consumer group. I think.
I would say that's more a situation in the past. Right now, increasingly, and it hasn't quite reached the tipping point in all the countries, though, is that necessity is outweighing preferences, in the sense that where before people were more resistant to automation, now they're realizing that they absolutely can't do without it because
Yeah.
there's just
Yes.
not enough people.
Yeah. For aged people, there is no question. I mean, if you can provide an automated solution for the problem you identified like this, even though that they are assisted by the caregiver, which does mean that they can have a 24 hours.
Yes, oh, absolutely. So the challenge is actually understanding the different cultures, and
I see.
understanding less the cultures and how to position yourself, but also the unique regulatory environment.
Yeah.
In a lot of the Western countries, aged care is very much subsidized, or there are channels for devices, and to navigate the different regulatory hurdles in each country to make it as affordable to
Yes.
the final customer is a challenge. As is just operating as a startup, how to scale into multiple countries at the same time. It's always a challenge for, a startup to really juggle international business, because the overhead and the traveling costs can be quite considerable.
Yes. And the purchasing power in different market are different, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, in US, North America, they don't have them problem much about the price and cost of a product as long as it serves the critical needs of them, right?
Right.
But in some on developing world or the frontier market, they have very few people who can afford that kind of price. Then maybe in the long term, but now is you can focus on one or two country market and then prove your business model and then get well on with your brand in the market. But in the long run, probably you need to customize a little bit to serve the needs of the purchasing power of the people, consumer in each geographic market. Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, but when I ask this question with other entrepreneur, they usually say the popular answer is fundraising or the finding a right talents. But you talk about the different sides. So how about your fundraising side and the finding out the right talents for your business?
Well, fundraising is definitely a challenge. I would say, especially so in Hong Kong. Um, Property investment tends to do very well. So
Yes, yeah.
to
Too well,
convince
too
too
well.
well,
Yeah,
and so to convince people to not invest in property and to invest in aged
for the
care tends to be, and in a startup tends to be uh, quite difficult. I believe, we have future plans to raise outside of Hong Kong as well. We are trying to raise some in Hong Kong, but because Western investors tend to have a better understanding of aged care, similar to the need, right? Because
yes,
they have greater needs, and therefore they have a greater understanding of these type of startups and these type of companies. So from a fundraising perspective, while we would love to find some investors in Asia, it it looks to be easier to do so in Europe and in the West.
right.
Um,
You already have a product, so I think it's not too difficult to find out investor. I mean, also they have. I mean, they are interested in solving the problem, this kind of social problem. Then this will be a very nice business to invest.
I hope so in Asia. Right now, obviously, on the short term, startups are always talking about the next, 12 months, 18 months. And while we've had a lot of interest from Europe, during this fundraising process, the most difficult thing is that everyone wants to come over to try our products. And this makes fundraising more difficult because right now they can't with
Yeah.
the travel restrictions. But we hope to actually open an office in Poland, likely at the end of this year. And so hopefully that changes a lot of things. You mentioned talent as well, and that's a big reason why we're looking to go expand into Europe
Poland.
and Poland as well.
Yes, I learned that a lot of Japanese Korean company has a factory in the Poland, surprisingly. So I can
Yes,
imagine they have a strength for manufacturing, right?
absolutely. In Western Poland, where we're looking, there's actually we're looking at the city Wrocław. And there's I know that LG Chemicals and a number of Korean enterprises have set up there recently.
Yes,
Uh,
yes,
so.
I saw that. You already answered you were going to open the office in the Poland, but what do you have on top of your mind for the next step and your long-term vision with your company?
Well, we have long-term vision is actually, as I said before, to automate all the major caregiving activities. So, there's the bathing, there's obviously the bed to wheelchair transfer, there is this dressing issue, and then we will also look at remote robotics for ad hoc tasks like feeding, like medication. So we're trying to essentially tackle 80% of the major caregiving tasks at probably around 20% of current cost of care in the West, right? So we're not sitting still in terms of development. And in terms of our marketing and our business development, we're planning to build out of Poland, as I said, to tackle a lot of Europe, and build out of Hong Kong to tackle a lot of Southeast Asia and Australia.
Great plan. Who is the nicest person you have ever met in your life and then why?
Wow. That's
Excluding your wife and mother. The one?
it's
Uh,
obvious. I would have to say my wife, but again, you're saying besides my wife.
disqualify. Yeah, disqualify.
My wife is disqualified.
Uh,
Well, we have actually one of our board advisors, Thomas Tranuski. He's been a great help and guidance for us for, I would say, the few years that we've been in development. He's been helping us along, opening doors, and he's just been a real blessing to us. So.
Okay, so and you wanted to say that your wife is the nicest person, and why? Not because, I mean, because she's listening to this episode later on.
I would say my wife is the nicest, is because she's supportive.
She married you, right?
Yes, and she's just so supportive of what we're trying to do. A lot of times there is a lot of uncertainty, even whether I'll need to move to Poland or not, or she's fully supportive, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, I know Korean wife is a good boss. Okay, thank you so much taking time and
Thank you
introducing your interesting, meaningful entrepreneur journey. I wish you all the best, good luck with your growth of your business, and then we can catch up again with your another interesting war story in your business.
Thank you very much for your time and for this opportunity to share.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share with a friend and drop me a review. Goodbye.